The amphitheater was colossal, an ancient relic of the Trinell homeworld, carved from luminescent stone and etched with glyphs that pulsed faintly in the dim light. Hundreds of students from all corners of the galaxy filled the tiered seats, their alien faces a kaleidoscope of shapes, colors, and sizes. Many whispered nervously, others sat rigidly in anticipation. This was not just another lecture. It was a rare privilege, a glimpse into the brutal realities of galactic war through the eyes of a living legend. At the center of the vast hall, a single spotlight pierced the gloom. It fell on the lectern, now empty, save for a small, ancient comm device. The murmurs died down. Then, heavy footsteps echoed from the entrance corridor. The massive steel doors groaned as they swung open. A figure stepped into the light. Commander Varak-Tan. He was a sight to behold, towering over most present, his broad shoulders hunched slightly beneath battered, battle-scarred armor. His face was a rough map of scars, but the most striking feature was his left eye, replaced by a cold, artificial lens that glowed faintly, with an eerie blue light. A deep, jagged scar traced a line from his temple down to his jaw, hinting at a wound that nearly claimed his life. The amphitheater fell silent, all eyes fixed on him. The murmurs ceased, replaced by the rhythmic hum of tension. Varak-Tan moved with the measured pace of a seasoned warrior, each step heavy with the weight of countless battles. He reached the lectern, planted his armored hands on its surface and scanned the crowd. His voice, when it came, was gravelly and low, a voice forged in the furnace of war. "You want to hear about humanity," he said, his accent thick and alien. "You want stories of their brutality, their madness, and their strength." He paused, letting the words settle. "Believe me when I say this. None of you are ready." Suddenly, a distant rumble shook the building. The lights flickered, and for a moment the massive doors rattled on their hinges. Outside, somewhere in the city, an explosion echoed sharply, the siren of emergency vehicles wailing in the distance. The students shifted uneasily. Varak-Tan's cold eye flickered toward the entrance. Then he smiled. Barely, but enough to send a chill through the room. "Peace is a fragile thing," he said. "You think it's safe here behind your walls. You think the galaxy is quiet because the war is over. But peace is not a gift. It's a waiting storm." The crowd leaned in, hungry for more. "Humans," he continued, voice hardening, "did not win by mercy. They won because they never stopped fighting. They fight like predators. Ruthless, cunning, brutal. And when you think they're broken, that they've lost, they come back stronger." Varak-Tan reached into his armor, pulling out a small battered datapad. He tapped it once, and a hollow projection flickered to life above the lectern. It showed a barren, rocky moon, pocked with craters and deep mine shafts. "Karsus Theta," he said, voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "The Butcher's Moon." The projection shifted, zooming into a shattered battlefield littered with wrecked machinery and smoldering bodies. "This is where I first saw what humans truly are. We thought them weak, disorganized scavengers. Instead, we found hunters. 9. Humans armed with little more than mining tools and sheer will. They wiped out my entire squad." Gasps rippled through the crowd. I was the only survivor. I remember the screams, the silence after, the way those 9 moved through the ruins, picking us off like game. No fear, no hesitation, just cold calculation. Varak-Tan's eye glowed brighter, the memories burning into his gaze. "You think your greatest warriors are unstoppable. These humans make your bravest look like children chasing fireflies." He leaned forward, voice dropping even further. "Remember this. If you ever face them in battle, never expect mercy. They don't fight for glory or honor. They fight because war is their nature, and they will break you." Behind him, the city's sirens wailed louder, mingling with the distant boom of a second explosion. Varak-Tan straightened and scanned the room once more. "Today, I tell you their stories. Not because I hate them, but because I fear what they represent. A force no one in this galaxy can afford to ignore." The crowd sat spellbound. the weight of his words sinking in like a stone dropped into deep water. A student in the front row raised a trembling hand. "Commander, why do you speak to us now? After all this time?" Braktan's synthetic eye locked on the student's face. "Because," he said quietly, "the war is not over. Not truly. It's waiting, just beneath the surface, and next time, the galaxy might not be so lucky." With that, the lights dimmed, the hollow faded, leaving only the cold silence and the pounding heartbeat of an uncertain future. The hologram faded, but the images lingered in the minds of the students, barren, jagged rocks bathed in cold starlight. Karsis Theta, a forsaken, mining moon on the edge of known space, far from the glittering core worlds and their safe diplomacy. Here, war wasn't a theory. It was raw, violent, and merciless. Commander Varaktan's voice dropped to a growl as he stepped away from the lectern and paced slowly across the amphitheater stage. His heavy boots echoed against the stone floor, each step a beat in the rhythm of a long-remembered nightmare. We believed the humans to be weak, scattered survivors clinging to scraps of technology, a nuisance at best. Our orders were clear. The moon secure the resources, eliminate the threat. It should have been a routine operation. He stopped and pointed at the far wall where another hollow image flickered to life. 9 human figures crouched among twisted mining equipment, weapons, crudely fashioned from drills, pipes, and scrap metal. But those 9? Fraktan shook his head, eyes darkening with memory. They were something else. Not soldiers, not in the way we understand. Hunters, predators. The students leaned forward, senses sharpened. Fraktan's tail plunged into the past. His platoon had touched down on Karsis Theta's surface at dawn, under the fragile light of a dying sun. The air was thin and bitter, the ground sharp and unyielding. The humans had vanished before they arrived. No resistance, no signs of life. But the moon had a sinister secret. Explosions ripped through the silence. Mine shafts collapsed beneath, the platoon's feet swallowing soldiers whole. Hidden traps detonated in bursts of fire and shrapnel. Out of the shadows, the humans struck, swift, silent, and lethal. They knew the terrain better than we did, Varaktan said, his synthetic eye narrowing. They used it against us like it was a weapon. His voice trembled slightly as he described the chaos. In the dark tunnels beneath the surface, the humans set ambushes with brutal precision. They used salvaged mining lasers as flamethrowers, improvised explosives fashioned from stripped-down power cells. Varaktan's soldiers were butchered one by one, their cries echoing through the tunnels like dying whispers. "We lost 24 men that day," he said, voice bitter. "I was the last alive, trapped in a collapsed shaft. I heard their voices above me, soft, almost mocking. They didn't celebrate victory, they hunted for sport." A student gasped. Another covered their mouth. Varaktan clenched his fists. They were not just fighting for survival. They were playing with us, testing us. The hollow flickered again, showing the skeletal remains of Varaktan's squad strewn across the rocky surface like broken toys. He crouched, voice low and grim. Their weapons were crude, their armor scavenged, but they fought like demons, possessed. I realized then that these humans had a different kind of war inside them, a madness and discipline intertwined. One of the students whispered, "How did you survive?" Varaktan's cold eye locked onto the crowd. "I didn't," he said simply. "Not really. I was left for dead, buried beneath tons of rock. Hours passed before I clawed my way out. I crawled through the dirt, limping, bleeding, until I reached the extraction point." He paused, swallowing memories no alien could forget. "But survival came at a cost. My squad was gone, my pride shattered, and my respect for humanity forged in fire." The amphitheater was silent except for the faint hum of the projection. Varaktan straightened, pacing again. The butchers' moon was only the beginning. Those 9 humans were the spark that ignited a galaxy-wide nightmare. He stopped abruptly, eyes burning with fierce intensity. "You must understand, when humans fight, They do not play by the rules. They rewrite them. Every defeat makes them stronger. Every loss fuels their fury. A murmur rippled through the crowd. One brave student dared to ask, "Commander, how do they keep going? What drives them?" Vraktan's expression hardened. Fear, anger, loss. But more than that, something deeper. A refusal to be broken, to be conquered, to be forgotten. He lowered his voice. They fight because war is their nature, not a choice but a bloodline. And when you think they have lost, that they are done, they rise again. Better, faster, deadlier. Suddenly, the lights flickered again and the distant sirens outside seemed closer now, echoing in the hall like a heartbeat. Vraktan looked toward the doors. "Remember this," he said, voice sharp as a blade. "You are not prepared. No one is. If the humans return, they will not come." For peace, the room was heavy with tension. Students exchanged uneasy glances, their minds racing with images of ruthless humans lurking in the shadows of war. Vraktan's voice dropped to a whisper. "And when they come, they will hunt you down, one by one." He stepped back into the shadows as the hollow flickered out, leaving the students alone with the weight of his chilling words. The hollow projector flickered back to life, painting the amphitheater walls with a sprawling image of a fortress world. Marrowline, a Lorathi bastion surrounded by jagged mountains and dark, choking forests. The citadel itself rose like a crown of steel and stone, perched on a plateau and fortified with centuries of defensive technology. It was supposed to be impenetrable. Commander Vraktan's voice softened but carried an edge of bitter regret. Thought Marrowline was the end of humanity's fight, a place where they'd finally break. We were wrong. He paused, letting the image settle on the massive battlements scarred by countless bombardments. The siege lasted 7 weeks. Our forces encircled the planet, unleashing orbital strikes that should have shattered their cities and reduced their defenders to ash. But the humans didn't surrender, not even when their cities burned. Vraktan's cold eye scanned the crowd, searching for disbelief. They vanished beneath the surface. Murmurs spread across the audience. Beneath the surface? How? The humans dug tunnels, Vraktan explained. Miles of them. Labyrinths twisting beneath the fortress and forests. They didn't just defend. They hunted. They emerged where we least expected, behind our lines, inside our command centers, in the very heart of our stronghold. The hollow shifted, showing narrow tunnels glowing with dim emergency lights, the walls carved with crude but purposeful markings, signs of a desperate but cunning enemy. In the dead of night, our commanders started disappearing. No battles. No firefights, just vanished. Vraktan's voice dropped to a grim whisper. One morning, our highest-ranking officer, General Harkon, was found strangled in her chambers, her throat cut with a thin, precise blade. No signs of struggle, no evidence of who did it, just silence. A gasp rippled through the crowd. We tried everything, scanners, patrols, traps. But the humans were ghosts, masters of stealth and terror. Their tunnels twisted like living, things always shifting, always hiding. He clenched his fists. The humans did not fight like soldiers, they fought like animals cornered. They knew pain, fear, hunger, and used all of it to sharpen their minds and bodies. There are stories, among my people, of humans willingly breaking bones, enduring wounds to sharpen their senses. Vraktan's lips tightened. I once captured a human scout. They did not scream, did not plead. Instead, they smiled, a cruel, empty smile, and whispered, "Pain is a teacher. You cannot defeat what you embrace." The amphitheater fell silent. Marrowline taught us that humans do not fear death. They embrace suffering as a path to strength. They will endure agony to become better killers. He straightened, his voice rising. And in the end, it was not the orbital strikes or our overwhelming firepower that broke the siege. The hollow image shifted again, showing a shattered command chamber with overturned consoles and flickering emergency lights. It was the tunnels. On the 49th day, a human squad exploded into the heart of our fortress. They bypassed every defense, slipped through every patrol, and struck the command center. Vraktan's eye glinted with cold fury. They killed every officer on. sight except one who they left alive to spread terror. His screams echoed through the tunnels for hours. He took a breath. Our forces panicked. Morale collapsed. We retreated, leaving Marrowline to the humans. The room was heavy with the weight of defeat, and the students felt it like a physical force pressing down on them. But, Varaktan added, voice low and steady, there is something even darker. A few students leaned forward, curious and wary. In the tunnels we found signs, evidence of something monstrous, not just traps or weapons, but things we could barely comprehend. The humans made use of corpses, alien and human alike, arranged in grotesque displays. He swallowed hard. War art. To them, it was a ritual, a way to honor their dead and intimidate their enemies. To us, it was madness. A student whispered, "Why do they do that?" Varaktan's eye darkened. Because war is not just fighting to them. It is a sacred test of spirit and will. They believe their souls grow stronger in battle and death. He looked down at his own scarred hands. Don't know if it's faith or madness, maybe both. The hollow faded, and the amphitheater grew still once more. Varaktan's voice lowered to a somber warning. The siege of Marrowline is why no fortress in the galaxy is safe from humanity. They will not only break your walls, they will break your minds. A student raised a trembling hand. Commander, how do you fight an enemy like that? How do you survive? Varaktan met the question with a slow, grim smile. You don't. Not always. He stepped back, shadows swallowing his figure. But you learn to fear them, respect them, and prepare for the worst. The crowd sat in silence, the echo of his words burning in their minds, a warning that humanity's brutal will was a force unlike any other. The hollow projector blinked on again, filling the amphitheater with a cold, star-streaked void dotted by silent warships gliding through darkness, like spectral predators. The image shifted slowly. No brilliant flashes of laser fire, no thunderous explosions, just a fleet moving with eerie grace, unseen and unheard. Commander Varaktan's voice cut through the silence, low and heavy. This is the Ghost Fleet. Hush fell over the crowd. Even the youngest student sensed something unnatural in the name. They appeared without warning, Varaktan began. No warning shots, no demands. Entire systems fell in hours. Communications blacked out. Defense, fleets disappeared without firing a shot. The image zoomed in on one ship, its hull an unsettling matte black, almost absorbing the light around it. It had no visible engines, no traditional weapons. The only visible feature was a glowing core pulsing with a dim, unnatural blue light. They did not broadcast their presence. They did not send warnings. They moved like shadows, silent, invisible, unstoppable. Varaktan's synthetic eye gleamed. Their ships, cloaked not just by technology but by something alien to our senses. A void in the cosmos where no sensor could penetrate. He paused, letting the cold facts sink in. Our forces scrambled to detect them, to engage, but it was like fighting ghosts. We sent boarding parties hoping to capture survivors. What we found was worse than death. The hollow shifted to eerie visuals, grainy recordings of silent corridors aboard human vessels, lit only by dim emergency lighting. There was no chatter, no footsteps, just an oppressive stillness. Boarding teams reported hearing distorted battle, hymns on their comm channels, songs warped into haunting echoes that clawed at the mind. A murmur passed through the audience. Those hymns, Varaktan said, voice dropping, were not just noise. They were psychological weapons, designed to unravel the sanity of anyone who heard them. He shuddered at the memory. Our boarding teams were found dead, some with shattered skulls, others with their own weapons turned against them. The ships themselves seemed alive, breathing, watching, waiting. The projection shifted again to a scene of a captured human prisoner aboard a Lorathi ship, hands bound but eyes fierce and unyielding. I interviewed one prisoner, Varaktan said, voice grim. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile that chilled me to the bone. Varaktan's gaze swept across the audience, voice steady but cold. He said, and I quote, "You won't remember us. But we remember you. The student swallowed hard, the ominous promise hanging in the air like a shadow. Vraktan's voice grew softer, yet no less intense. That fleet was not just a military force. It was a message. He stepped down from the lectern, walking slowly toward the front row. The humans do not fight like any enemy we have faced. They do not seek to conquer, to claim territory, or even to dominate in the traditional sense. He stopped, meeting the eyes of a young student. They seek to erase, to unsettle, to haunt. They fight with the cold precision of predators and the madness of ghosts. He turned back to the hollow, which now showed an entire system. Planets, blinking out one by one like extinguished candles. The ghost fleet shattered entire star systems, leaving only silence in their wake. No colonies survived, no defenses held. A whisper escaped a student. Why do they do this? Vraktan shook his head slowly. Because they believe war is a test, not just of strength, but of will. They fight to remind the galaxy that no one is safe. No one can hide. He gestured broadly at the hollow. Silence is their weapon. Fear is their ally. And death is their language. The room was heavy with the weight of this revelation. The student sat frozen, the terrifying truth sinking deep. Vraktan's voice softened, almost mournful. We once believed our technology, our strategies, could protect us. But the Ghost Fleet showed us that humanity's strength is something else entirely. He looked skyward as if recalling a distant star. Something no sensor can detect, no shield can block, no army can withstand. He returned to the lectern and leaned forward. Remember this. When the humans come for you, it won't be with blaring trumpets or blazing guns. It will be with silence. The hollow flickered and went dark. The amphitheater remained in stunned silence, every student feeling the cold echo of a war that was far from over, and an enemy that no one could afford to underestimate. The hollow projector sprang to life once again, revealing a stark, icy landscape pocked with craters and battered by relentless storms. A lonely outpost, Veshkar, stood defiant against the frozen winds, a beacon of resistance on a hostile frontier. It was humanity's last foothold in the sector before the great silence swept through the stars. Commander Vraktan's voice grew heavy with bitter memory. Veshkar outpost was supposed to be a fortress, a line in the cold void, but it became the crucible where we saw what humans truly endure, and how far they are willing to go. The hollow zoomed in on a small group of humans clustered behind reinforced barriers, their faces grim beneath battered helmets. They carried makeshift weapons and scavenged armor, but their eyes burned with unyielding fire. Our intelligence had warned us. A human force was regrouping here. They were few, but desperate, and we had overwhelming numbers. Troops, artillery, air support. Vraktan's eye glinted coldly. We thought it would be a quick victory, but it was anything but. From the first assault, the humans fought like cornered wolves. Their tactics were chaotic, unpredictable. They struck from unexpected angles, using the icy terrain to vanish and reappear, leaving us disoriented and vulnerable. The hollow showed explosions ripping through the outpost walls, fire blooming in crimson plumes. Human defenders fought tooth and nail, refusing to yield an inch. Our forces fell into traps we couldn't see coming. Mines camouflaged in ice, ambushes in snowdrifts. Every attempt to advance was met with relentless fury. Vraktan's voice lowered. They were not fighting for glory or conquest. They fought because survival was all they had left. The crowd felt the weight of desperation thick in the air. As the siege dragged on, we discovered something disturbing. The hollow revealed a close-up of a human soldier, his face gaunt, eyes sunken but fierce. They had no supplies, no reinforcements, just sheer will, and something more. Vraktan's synthetic eye flickered as he recounted what his scouts found in the outpost's deepest tunnels. Human medics were performing field amputations and surgeries with crude tools. They treated wounds with what little they had. Ice, water, makeshift bandages, sheer determination. He looked toward the crowd. Many of their fighters fought with broken limbs, shattered ribs. They refused to quit. Even when hopelessly outmatched, they kept fighting. One student whispered, "How did they keep going?" Varaktan smiled, a grim, bitter smile. Because they embrace pain as part of the fight. Pain is not a weakness. For them, it is a weapon, a shield, a crucible. They believe their souls grow stronger with every wound. The hollow shifted to show the last day of the siege. On the final morning, our forces launched a full assault, expecting the outpost to fall quickly. But the humans had one last secret. They detonated the outpost's reactor. A sudden explosion ripped across the projection, flames and debris scattering in a violent storm. The blast was devastating, leveling the outpost and killing hundreds of our troops. The humans escaped in small pods, disappearing into the storm. Varaktan's voice was barely audible. They sacrificed everything to take us down with them. A heavy silence filled the amphitheater. Beskar was not a defeat caused by technology or numbers, Varaktan said slowly. It was a defeat caused by the unbreakable human spirit. The student sat stunned, the raw emotion of the story, settling like a shroud. A voice rose hesitantly from the crowd. "Commander, why do you tell us this? Why share their strength with us?" Varaktan's cold eye locked on the speaker. "Because you must understand what you face. These humans do not fight like others. They do not surrender. They do not retreat. They endure until there is nothing left. But even then, they endure." He turned away, voice growing quiet. Beskar was a warning. The humans will come again, and when they do, they will bring with them a war unlike any we have seen. The hollow faded, leaving only the echo of frozen winds and shattered hopes. The amphitheater lights dimmed as the holographic display transformed into something less tangible, less visual, yet infinitely more profound. A flickering montage of human faces, men and women of all ages and backgrounds, some battle-worn, some serene, all marked by an unyielding fire in their eyes. Commander Varaktan stepped forward, his voice softer now, almost reverent. "After decades of war, after witnessing their brutality and resilience, I realized the truth behind their ferocity." He paused, scanning the room as if searching for understanding. "What drives them is not just survival or conquest." The hollow shifted, displaying glimpses of human culture. Soldiers singing around campfires, families huddled together in makeshift shelters, young children learning with fierce curiosity. It is something we cannot easily grasp, something they call the code. A student frowned, whispering to a neighbor. "The code?" Varaktan nodded. "The code is a complex philosophy, a mixture of honor, pain, endurance, and hope. It teaches them to embrace suffering and loss as part of life, not signs of failure." He turned his gaze upward, voice resonating with hard-earned respect. "They believe that through struggle they become stronger. Through pain, wiser. Through loss, more determined." The holograms now showed ancient symbols, tattered flags, worn-out diaries, remnants of humanity's long history of conflict and survival. They carry the weight of millennia of wars, of empires rising and falling, of relentless challenges from within and without. Varaktan's voice hardened. But, rather than breaking, humanity adapts. He pulled up an image of a human soldier, face streaked with grime and blood, clutching a makeshift weapon forged from scavenged parts. In battle, they don't just rely on technology or numbers. They rely on the strength of the code. It is a pact with themselves, a promise to never yield no matter the cost. The students listened intently, absorbing every word. They fight with an unyielding discipline fueled by the belief that surrender is death of the spirit. Varaktan's eyes darkened. "I have seen humans captured, tortured, broken in every way, and still, when given the chance, they fight back. Not out of hope for freedom, but because the code demands it." He leaned forward. "The code is not written in laws or treaties. It is written in blood and sweat and scars. It lives in their minds, driving them beyond pain, beyond fear." One student asked softly, "Is it what makes them so hard to defeat?" Varaktan's answer was, simple yet chilling, "Yes. Because the code is stronger than any weapon. It turns weakness into strength, fear into courage. The hollow shifted again, showing a battlefield littered with fallen humans and aliens alike. Yet, in the midst of ruin, a handful of humans stood unbroken, rallying, fighting on. They do not fight for glory or honor in the traditional sense, Varaktan said. They fight for survival, yes, but also to prove their will is unbreakable. He straightened, voice gaining power. The code shapes every choice they make, from the front lines to the home front. It is why they build no monuments to peace, but instead build legacies through struggle. Varaktan's synthetic eye scanned the students, who sat silent, faces etched with a mixture of fear and awe. To understand humanity, you must understand the code. It is their soul, their curse, their salvation. He turned away from the holograms, voice dropping. And it is why no matter how many times we defeat them, no matter how many losses they suffer, they always come back. The lights brightened slowly, ending the lecture. The students sat motionless, their minds filled with a new, profound respect for an enemy who would never quit. Varaktan's final words lingered. To fight humans is to fight the impossible, because they have already made peace with the impossible inside themselves. The amphitheater's atmosphere shifted as the hollow projector illuminated the map of the Salaxis cluster, a sprawling network of star systems on the brink of collapse. The display showed the scattered remnants of Allied fleets, their formations ragged and their resources nearly spent. Commander Varaktan's voice was heavy with urgency. This was the moment when the war nearly broke us all. He stepped forward, pointing to a tiny, contested world at the edge of known space, Sarna Prime. The humans made their last stand here. Outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched in every way, they had one chance, and they took it. The hollow zoomed in on a battered human fleet gathering in orbit around Sarna Prime, small ships flickering in and out of sensor range like fireflies in the dark. Our intelligence reports showed they had no reinforcements coming, no chance of victory by conventional means. Varaktan's synthetic eye gleamed. So they changed the game. The hollow shifted to images of frantic shipyards and makeshift factories, where humans worked feverishly to convert old cargo vessels and salvage scraps into weapons of war. They turned rust and wreckage into tools of destruction, forging weapons, designed for one purpose: to break the enemy's will. The students watched as the scene transitioned to the humans deploying swarms of small, fast-moving craft, drones packed with explosives and electronic disruptors. These were not just machines. They were extensions of the human spirit, relentless, unpredictable, and utterly fearless. Varaktan's voice dropped to a whisper. They called it the last gambit. The hollow showed the drones swarming through enemy lines, weaving through flak and missiles, disabling critical systems with devastating precision. Our fleets were crippled in hours. But the humans did not stop there. On the surface, human forces launched coordinated guerrilla attacks, striking at supply lines, command posts, and communication arrays. They fought in the ruins, in tunnels, in every shadow. Varaktan's expression grew grim. They were ghosts in the war, unseen, unstoppable, and unrelenting. He paused, looking at the crowd. The last gambit was not about winning through sheer force. It was about breaking the enemy's spirit. The hollow shifted again to show captured enemy soldiers, hardened veterans whose faces were etched with shock and disbelief. They surrendered not because they were defeated, but because they were exhausted, broken by endless pain and uncertainty. Varaktan's voice hardened. It was the first time we saw humanity's true strength, not in numbers or firepower, but in their refusal to quit. A student asked quietly, "Did they win the war then?" Varaktan shook his head slowly. "No, but they showed us that no matter how dark the night, humanity's fire never dies." He stepped back, voice resolute. The last gambit was a turning point, for them and for us. The hollow faded, leaving the students with a haunting image. A lone human flag planted in the shattered soil of Sarna Prime, waving defiantly against the void. Varaktan's final words echoed in the amphitheater. To fight humanity is to fight the fire that refuses to be extinguished. The hollow projector cast a soft glow across the amphitheater, displaying a quiet scene. A sunrise over a battered Earth, its surface scarred but still alive. The image was not of warships or battlefields, but of people, children playing in rubble-strewn streets, survivors rebuilding, families embracing amid the ruins. Commander Vuraktan's voice was quieter now, tinged with a strange reverence. This is where it all began, and where it never ended. He stepped forward, eyes reflecting the light of the rising sun on the hollow. After countless wars, after suffering losses too great to count, humanity's legacy is not just in the weapons they wield or the battles they win. He paused, letting the truth settle. Their legacy is in their spirit. The image shifted to show human leaders, not generals, but teachers, healers, and everyday people who chose to rebuild rather than to destroy. Their wars forged something deeper than steel and fire. They forged resilience, compassion, hope. Vuraktan's gaze swept over the students. You may know humanity as a brutal enemy, but you must also know them as survivors. He showed scenes of humans reaching out to alien refugees, forging alliances, sharing knowledge despite centuries of conflict. They understand suffering because they have lived it. They know loss because they carry it every day. The hollow revealed a symbol, a circle of hands of different shapes and colors, clasped tightly. This symbol is called the Unbroken. It represents their refusal to surrender, to despair, to hatred, to the darkness that war brings. Vuraktan's voice grew firm. The unbroken spirit is why humanity never gives up. Why they never stop fighting, not just on the battlefield but in every part of their lives. He looked out at the crowd, the weight of his words hanging heavy. When you face humanity, remember this. You are not just fighting soldiers or ships, you are fighting an idea, an unbreakable will that has survived millennia. The amphitheater was silent, the students moved by a newfound respect, and perhaps a touch of fear. Vuraktan's final words were slow, deliberate. The galaxy has underestimated humanity for too long. Their brutal warfare, their relentless endurance, it is all part of a larger story. He turned away, the hollow fading to black. The legacy of the unbroken. A moment passed. Then Vuraktan's voice returned, softer. And perhaps one day the galaxy will learn that the greatest strength is not the power to destroy, but the power to endure. The room remained still, the story complete, but its echoes lingering in every mind, an unshakable testament to humanity's brutal, unyielding spirit.